welcome to episode 24 of the NatalieinRenaissance podcast. I've been away for a couple of weeks, and the last episode that I recorded was all about enjoying your return on investment and taking time to enjoy the things that you have created, the things that you have worked on, worked for. And so the past month, I celebrated a significant birthday. I planned a beautiful vintage birthday event full of styling and costumes and dancing and choreography and a table setting, and was spending a lot of time and energy getting ready for that, planning ahead, and it turned out to be just so magical and so amazing. And I know that I plan a lot of events for my business, but it was so fun channeling all of that creative energy I would normally spend on my business and enjoy that personally. Making time for play, making time for this gorgeous event was just so unforgettable, so memorable, and I'm so happy that it went the way that it did and how everyone was so on board with it. And the photos are just so magical, and those memories are just so beautiful. And then that event was followed by a 3-week trip to Morocco, which was also such an amazing experience and a whirlwind because we pretty much did almost the entire country. I saw so many different things. It's so diverse, not only in the landscape, but also the cultures. And it was an amazing thing to experience. And in this time of really enjoying the breaks, really taking a step back from business and participating and celebrating life, and my gratitude in that I'm able to experience all of these things, there have been a lot of benefits that I have seen in the fact that I have returned and I'm resuming some of the work that I had left off in these celebratory events in my travel. And one of the benefits, I think, was definitely the fact that in these new events, I was letting my normal neural networks, my autopilots, my what I pretty much do every weekday as business, I was letting those things rest. And while being on the trip, I really did my best to not activate those neural networks when someone would ask me about what I do or the things I'm passionate about. I really tried to keep my mind going to those places that I frequent so much, whether it's business planning or talking about the studio or talking about music learning, right? Those things are great, but while I'm on holiday, I'm very much on holiday. And so I tried to avoid talking about those things as much as I could, or to just make sure that my mind didn't drag me out of where I was, to be able to be in that present moment and to give my mind a rest. Because I want to protect those things, I value those things, and so that involves giving them a rest. And it was really great to operate in new neural networks, to create them via new experiences, being in new places, reacting to new stimuli. It's so great for one's mind health to be able to do that, to be in the new, to embrace the new, and to give the old a little bit of a rest. Now that I am back from my trip, there are some things that I have noticed, and one of them has been that these little side plays, these little bouts of rest, they weren't totally rest. And some of my clients were talking about the vacation that I had and how rested I should be. And I sort of laughed because it was actually the opposite. In being in that novel state of constantly moving, of constantly seeing new things, I was very much physically tired. Very much physically tired, but I was creatively and intellectually rested and inspired. And so my goals in returning were definitely to resume a healthy sleep schedule, gym workout schedule, and also food eating habits, to really get back on that routine so that my physical exhaustion, physical rest could catch up and be at a good place to resume all of those normal activities. And another thing that I have found in resuming work is that while I was extremely grateful to participate in all of these events, it was also a blessing to honor them and also to finish those cycles, those things that have been on my mind for so long, a trip, a fun party. It's really nice to also give those things closure. And so, in coming back, I have had a week of spring break from the lesson schedule because students are on their local school spring break. I've also had time to not only physically recuperate, but also to just process everything that has happened and to reflect on all of those things and give them closure through memory capture, making reels and printing out photos and creating scrapbooks, right? Those are creative ways for me to celebrate those moments, but to get closure and also rest from them. And so I think those things are really important to talk about. It's whenever, especially as a creative, when we start off on a project that we're really excited about, I think it's great to acknowledge how good it feels to do something creative, but also we need to realize that these things are cycles and that ending something that we start is really important, and gaining closure on those things is also really important. And ending is such an important concept that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Having an exit strategy, seeing the end, is a natural and healthy part of being a creative, right? Not only starting things, doing them well, but also finishing them and bringing a sense of closure back into your life. And recognizing all of these things are cycles is such a huge mindset shift that I think is really helpful for anyone, not only as a personal life mindset, but also in terms of business and in work. And recently, when I returned back from my trip, I was asked to do a guest podcast. And one thing that I noticed about the questions and something that the person was interested in hearing about everything that I'm doing. And I found myself kind of firing on all cylinders, which preparing for the interview, I felt like I was getting pulled all over the field, almost like, in baseball when someone's fielding in the outfield, right? Just you're firing on all cylinders. You are really primed for every question, and you're having to go into all these thought places that you don't normally operate in at any given moment. And that's definitely something that I mentioned as a creative, the work that I am drawn to, these ideas that I have. I'm very careful about the pacing, but also about how I feel about it as a physical and energetic being. And I don't operate in all of those things at the same time. Things have a place, they have a season, they have a beginning, they have an ending, and all of that I'm very cognizant about at any given moment. One of the books that I think has really helped me to think more holistically about all of these things is called Mind Management, Not Time Management by David Cadavy. And in the book, he talks a lot about our relationship with time and time's relationship with energy and how we experience that in a physical body, because we do have limits. And we have these powerful biological rhythms in our bodies throughout the day, right? We think about when you wake up and you just have so much energy, or maybe you wake up and you're really tired, but then around lunchtime you pick up. We have these fluctuations of energy and of things that we need that can vary. And those things can be linked to hormonal cycles, female versus male, biorhythms, your sleep schedule, your circadian rhythm, and even the rhythm of food and the timing of when you eat and how that affects your body and sleep and everything. And being more aware of those things, I mean, there's nothing like jet lag or international travel to really see how those things affect you. I definitely noticed that, and already as I'm getting on a plane, I'm trying to adapt to the new timing as best as I can by changing how I'm sleeping, by changing the timing of when I eat. I'm very cognizant of all those things. But not only thinking about your energy and the time, but also noticing in yourself, like, okay, when am I the most awake? When do I feel the most creative? When do I feel like I want to be social? And paying attention to those things and also catering to those things is a way that we can help ourselves out. Because one of the points that he makes is not every 24 hours is the same. And I would agree with that, because there's some weeks where I feel like I have more energy, other weeks where I feel more introverted, and it really just depends on a lot of different factors. And thinking about ourselves in terms of cycles where we do have these inner clocks, we are really connected to the rhythm of nature, the seasonal nature of life. We also need to be cognizant of carrying that into our work, carrying that into our personal lives, the things that we say yes to, the things that we take on. And going back to that podcast interview, I was asked about the tools that I use to make my life easier. And I said, well, creativity thrives when structure is very high. And so part of, being a physical being, but also having a very creative imagination, is that I have to support my creative imagination by supporting my physical being, by making sure I get enough sleep, by making sure that I'm not doing more than I can at any given moment, because under delivering and underperforming doesn't feel good, right? But that's something I can control by supporting myself physically, by making sure that I feel happy and healthy, and that way that overflows into my work and that overflows into my teaching. And so being cognizant of the energy that we have and treating that like a currency is really important. And not only that, but connecting that to time, connecting that to your hormonal cycle, maybe it's your sleep schedule, fixing one of those things. It will do wonders for your work, for your creativity, and everything else that you're looking to do more of, to experience more of. Maybe it's rest, peace, leisure, right? All of these things have a place in the cycle of life. And I think about hustle culture. And when I was in undergrad, that was sort of the rage, right? Where we can sleep when we're dead. I don't need to rest. I've got this. Very, very almost abrasive energy where you really weren't listening to your body. You weren't listening to your mind. You weren't really listening to all those needs. You were really shutting yourself off from feeling, from your emotions. And that was not a really healthy place to be. This idea of pushing, of just getting through, of grinding. I think it's not a very healthy way to live, but I think of so many people, especially business owners, who, they just don't feel like it, but they're forcing themselves to go. I think if we can harness our own biorhythms, if we can harness our own energy and work with those things, and also treating ourselves like a holistic being that we are, where we are physical, we are emotional, we are spiritual, and integrating all of those things, I think that is a recipe for a happy, healthy life, a happy, healthy business. But there's a book by Amelia Nagoski called Burnout. And something that really resonated from the book was burnout isn't about doing something that you dislike. Burnout can also happen when you're doing something you really, really like, but it never ends and you never finish the cycle, or you don't even realize it is a cycle. And I think of so many 9 to 5s where you're just doing the same thing over and over and over, and the cycle never ends. And that's why I love project-based learning so much, because subcontractor, because you start a project, you obviously have this middle point, but then you have an end. And so I think that in working with something that's always perpetual, there really is nothing perpetual in nature. Everything has a beginning, everything has an end. And so when we're operating with something that isn't found in nature, that's where things can go out of alignment. That's where things can stop making us feel fulfilled and happy. And so that book was really great. And if you're struggling with your work, or you're struggling with this idea of burnout, I really recommend that you read her book. But we need to embrace not just the exciting beginnings of new things, but we also need to embrace finishing things, closing tabs, gaining closure on things that have occurred, and honoring them. And in doing so, in letting us finish, in letting us rest, in saying, wow, we did all these amazing things, and just resting, honoring those things, eventually we're going to be able to start the next cycle, and it's not going to feel forced. unnatural or just more work. It's actually going to feel like the special and exciting thing that it is. And so, having gone on all these exciting things, having experienced these celebratory moments, and now that I'm on the downside of them, the closing part of them, gaining closure, reflecting on what happened, and just being in this moment and not rushing ahead to the next thing, not immediately diving into my to do list, but making sure that I'm physically rested, prioritizing my energy and how I feel, and working with that. The ideas have started to come and they're waiting for me when I'm ready. And I worked on it a little bit yesterday, and I was actually really impressed by the state of flow I was able to be in, business flow. So many things were clicking. I was extremely productive, which wasn't my goal actually. It was more of an experimentary, like, what if I do this? And I was able to just be in this state of flow. I think my mind was ready for that. I was also well rested. I feel a lot better after traveling with a very active adventure group. And so, by resting, by enjoying everything, enjoying the end of these cycles, these ideas, these events that have been on my mind for a couple of months, I am feeling very aligned. All the resets have been wonderful for me, acknowledging where I am physically right now and kind of keeping tabs on myself before jumping back into work, before jumping back into the ways that I'm giving to others, making sure that I'm starting with me being aligned in all of these different areas, having time to be creative, social, whatever have you. It's been wonderful to bring that outlook back into work, back into life. And so, my advice for anyone who is, again, a multidimensional creative, who loves to start things, or if you feel like you have a lot going on right now, close some tabs, set some boundaries, but finishing some things, no matter what it is. It could be a project that's been hanging over your head. Whenever too many things are hanging over the head, they're taking up our mental space and our energy, and they're draining it before, we're even actually getting to do anything about it. I think finding a way to take care of those things where they're not mentally hanging over us, finishing out those cycles, and not being in too many at the same time, I think is really, really important and something that doesn't get talked about enough. And so I'm here to talk about it today. And I think it's definitely one way to improve one's quality of life, and also to make every season, every project that much more meaningful in enjoying not only the creation of it, the going through it, but also the ending of it. Thank you for listening to this episode today. Please like and leave a review. It would be very much appreciated. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already at NatalieinRenaissance, and we'll see you in the next episode.